and welcome to the Ron Hall Show, where we share the meaningful that makes life beautiful. Today I have invited my wife, Beth, to join us on the show because she makes my life beautiful.
Thank you, darling. Yes, and February is the month of love and romance, and that's what we're going to talk about here today on our show.
Well, in fact, it's very sad to say that there is no such thing as a perfect marriage or relationship. And if you're living in one that is strained to the max and you want to know how to fix it, you're in the right place today. Today's guests are actually friends of ours, and they are a Dallas power couple who have co-authored a beautiful book called The Truth and Love Journey. And if you're searching for the tools to put your Humpty Dumpty marriage back together again, or if you're just searching for that one person that you want to spend the rest of your life with, this is a must read. So welcome to the show, our friends Bethany and Vince.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
it's great being here.
Absolutely.
Bethany is, as an author, not only of this book, many other books, but she's also a motivational speaker. She's a corporate growth agent, and they are a relationship coach. And they do wonderful retreats. Vince, as a former pastor, is also Bethany's husband, boyfriend, lover, and
baby.
partner in crime. They do all these, everything together. They have an absolutely beautiful story that they tell in the Truth and Love Journey. And it's really a thrill to have them here on the show. And I have read a lot of marriage books. I've been married a long time. And so I've read a lot of marriage and self-help books. But without a doubt, The Truth and Love Journey is the most transparent and shows the most vulnerability of any of these books that I've ever read. And I just want to congratulate you on a beautiful, beautiful, well-written book that is dang near just a page turner. You can hardly not want to keep going in this book. So I started off was going to read one chapter a night, and ended up reading the whole thing in about 30 hours. So
We've heard others say that.
That's
a little catchy.
So yeah, congratulations on the show. So thank you for being here. So like I said, this is the most beautiful and transparent story that I've ever heard and been told in a book. And so my question, and the number one big money question from our listeners and friends, and even Beth, we want to know, what is your number one piece of advice to avoid a boring marriage that so many people have found themselves in?
Honey, did you bring the salsa? You got to spice it up, baby.
It's gotta be spicy.
You know what? I mean, and I'm sure we'll talk about this theme several times, but you know what? For us, it's about having an affair with each other every day.
Isn't that cool? I mean, I haven't thought about that, but I mean, it's a safe, effective way. Why not?
Well,
I
mean, when we start dating, right? So, most people when they're dating, they get excited about it, they get all dolled up, and they spend so much time. So I'm an investment guy. You guys know this.
Yes.
And it's the thought of, we invest a lot of time up front. But over time, especially as we get married and a year, 5, 10, 15 years pass, we miss it. And what I find is it's about investment. If we can take the time to do something special, to get dressed up, for me to do something of whatever her love language is, to really woo her, and that's when the bedroom gets really hot. I'm just saying.
We decided that our life together every day would be an amazing adventure. So we decided that we were, in effect, I've written lots of books, but we decided our life was a story, and it was a story of our life that we wanted to tell. And we talked a lot when we were dating about why people have affairs. They have affairs because it's not just the investment, but you stop having fun with each other. Mm-hmm. You start talking about the bills and the things that you didn't get done and why didn't you do this, and it becomes a negative experience.
Yes, critical, complaining.
Complaining.
Yes.
So the reason people have affairs is suddenly there's something positive going on. So it's those two things. We ask people when we coach them to make the investment in your relationship, plan amazing activities and fun things, but second of all, try to talk through the difficult things away from a date and make the dates fun times.
Yeah.
When you're not going to be talking about the bad and the negative, there's plenty of that to go.
I mean, life is difficult. It's going to be difficult for everyone, but put that aside and put your mate as the star of the date, the show, and adore them.
And adore them.
Yes.
So I have to say that after reading your book, Beth and I were impressed with some of these things of, making the date and having the affair. So New Year's Eve, we were in lockdown because Beth had COVID. But we decided we were not going to let that ruin our New Year's Eve. So, I put on a suit and tie, and she dressed up in her most beautiful dress. And we had our own party, and it was the most fun New Year's Eve
You looked
ever.
amazing.
So,
You looked amazing.
So
And
what they're not telling you is they did a little social media thing too, and so we joined
that's
you
why
guys.
we got
You
to
didn't
see
know
you.
this, but we were having a great time with you guys.
but this was as a result of reading your book and realizing that you can you need to make things exciting.
need to make it
And
exciting.
we just sat home in our pajamas that we'd been in for 12 or 13 days because of COVID. We decided we're going to make this a special New Year's, and so we did. And that's
we have
awesome.
done
Thank
that.
you.
Yes, we have done that too. He has flown me to Paris for a weekend. We
Ooh, that's
flew to
romantic.
Rome for an opera. I mean, we do some crazy things. Stay up, on a flight all night,
Or
and
we
then
go
come
to
home.
Saltgrass, or
that's true.
I mean, it really is about making every day an adventure and just finding ways to do that.
Big or small.
Big or small.
Yeah.
Yes.
We went to the zoo for an hour today.
And made that fun.
It was fun. It was raining. It was still.
That's a challenge, but yes. So, okay, your book is called The Truth and Love Journey. That's the title of the book. So, how did you guys how the two of you start your truth and love journey?
We laugh because we say we started out as relationship non-experts.
Really?
Because both of us had experienced every failure we think that it can happen in a relationship. And when we met, we were at the point where we'd both decided that single for life was okay and that we were going to stay that way.
But it was deeper than that. We were at the point where we were tired of the game playing, tired of the scenes out there just trying to impress everyone. We just decided we're going to be ourselves. And so it almost, when we met, we were introduced on a blind date with Tammy Kling. And it was almost like we naturally fell into the movie How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. and so we were so blunt with each other when every time we would go out, we definitely thought every time
That would
okay,
be the
that's
last date. That's
Wait
it.
a second. But I heard that you almost blew it because you brought your dad along on your first date.
Well, that was the first thing. So, all right. So, in fairness, so there's also something we had with stereotypes, and so I saw her on Facebook, and she was glamorous. I could tell she was a talk show host. She had written many books, and I was like, oh crap, man. I can't compare to that. So.
Says the ex-pastor of 17 years who is a wealth advisor. And I was thinking, you shouldn't, you can't do that. Are you having a glass of wine? And I was like,
Too judgy.
I do not need a judgy person in
So
my life.
I just thought, what better way to break the ice than bring your dad? and it worked.
Yeah.
Well, she wasn't impressed, but
No, I love the line that I've heard you use on a number of occasions, that you were told by a counselor or someone that you had a broken picker.
My counselor told me. This is way into my
Better
therapy
you than
session.
him.
Yeah. She said, I know, and there's been a lot of jokes
Yeah.
about it's better than having a broken pecker. But
Amen.
no, I did have a broken picker in that if there was the worst possible choice, that was the one for some reason that I would make. Okay. And so she said, never pick your own date. And if someone else picks it for you, you're going to have a higher success rate. So when Tammy said you should go out with Vince, I thought, well, she must have some knowledge here.
How did you
have.
accept that? Like when they said to let somebody else, like that you couldn't pick.
Literally, I had been through, so you'll read it in the book, but I've been widowed twice. I've been married 3 times. I literally had such a hard knocks road that I was willing to, I was willing to admit that I was not the right person to choose. Like I was at that point of failure where I've been through so much pain.
So our friends that are listening today who want to begin a truth and love journey, they're desperate for what you guys have. How do you begin a truth and love journey?
Well, there's really two things that we found it really starts with. The first is you have to be willing to do the work, which means vulnerability is a scary thing. I don't know about for you, Ron. For a guy, being vulnerable, I mean, in the corporate world, it's just something you don't do. And we're trained not to do that, especially growing up with little boys and friends. And so it's that you're willing to be vulnerable. The second thing is that you're willing to focus on yourself and not the other person. It's not the other person that's the issue. It's something in me that I have to work on. And we were both at that place where we were just starting to do that. And that's why I think it was easier to be vulnerable with each other and say, hey, this is who I am. If you don't like it, there's the door.
Well, we tell people if you're dating someone or even in a marriage and they haven't told you something that makes you stop and go, and stun you that they're thinking that or that went through their mind, then they're not being truly vulnerable. Because think of how messy life is. Think about how many obstacles you come across. Think of the worst thought or worst thing you've gone through. And what if you were in a relationship and you couldn't share that because you were afraid of how they'd react? And that's how most relationships are today.
So when Vince was being very vulnerable, did it ever come to something that he said when you said, "Woo, I wish he hadn't told me that"?
Yep, absolutely. There was one time I said, I'm going to need a few days.
Yeah.
I'm going to need a few days on that one.
Yeah.
And I'll get back to you.
And what about, okay, this is, in all fairness, did she tell you anything?
Oh yeah. She shared some things, but you know what? I guess okay. So for myself, I was committed to the inner journey and working on myself, and so I was a pastor 17 years. So I had the affair in the bad way, not with my spouse, but with someone else, and I really screwed up, and I lost everything through that. And that level of brokenness and coming to the place, I know a lot of guys who've been there, but I know few guys who take the time to go, okay, what's the issue with me, not with everyone else, not with my spouse or my ex. And that was the place that gave me the courage. I didn't always share it as fast as I should, but I did get to the place of saying, look, this is who I am. I love you. I want you in my life. But this is who I am. I'm not going to be mad if this isn't who you want.
Mm-hmm.
That's
the
okay.
receptivity was where we got to a point where we realized everybody has baggage. But is that person receptive enough to be able to stop and go, you're right, I was really cruel when I said that or when I reacted that way. And the reason I did it was, and if you can be that receptive to be able to stop and realize that they're sharing something that hurts because you really did act inappropriately or do something you shouldn't have done. But if you're willing to listen and get to that next step, that's where relationships thrive.
So to answer your question, Ron, when she shared some of the things that were definitely maybe pause for a second. I didn't pause too long because I have known where I've been. Who am I to judge? What we found is, at least for myself, is everyone has baggage, just like we said. Sure.
But Bethany's looks like it may be Louis Vuitton.
Exactly. No, you're so exact, because it is, whose baggage do you want to carry? Everyone has baggage, but you know what? I wanted to carry your baggage because it was Louis Vuitton baggage. It's some good stuff.
He actually said when we were dating that what won his heart was all of the tough situations I'd lived through. I was talking about what I had done wrong. No matter how wronged I was focused on my inner journey. And that's what attracted each of us to each other. And that's what we try to teach other people, really, through this is you don't grow by focusing on the 100 things people did wrong to you.
I loved when you said you didn't judge her for what she told you, and likewise, And that reminds me of my old friend in Denver who used to tell me, Mr. Ron, the courthouse is full of judges. And God ain't looking for no more of them. Said, he's looking for servants. So he said, if you're going to be hanging around me, you leave your judge's robe in the closet. We're going to get along just fine. So,
You know, Denver, it sounds like to me probably the best marriage counselor that ever was.
he could have been. I can often use marriage counseling because I am a real smart aleck, as you can tell even in this conversation. And there's a little bit of that in both of you as well. I know we've been around each other a lot. But, and I know sometimes my words, when I mean them to be funny, are hurtful. So I know that words have a powerful effect that in using them, speak to that about the words we use in communicating with each other. So.
They can be a weapon, and I think that they can kill. We don't realize that as adoring as words can be, they can be a very, very painful weapon. And that was actually, we talk about the weapons that we pull on our mates in the book, and that was my go-to, was being a negotiator and a corporate growth agent. I negotiated hundreds of deals, and you learned how to manipulate the information to make sure that your point was always coming out. And I had learned how to do that on people. And so I was trying to unlearn this very bad habit I had while we were dating. And when we studied the 5 love languages, we realized if your love language is words of affirmation, which is Vince's, and you do the opposite of that, you're cutting, your remarks are hurtful, it's actually more punishing for someone whose love language is words of affirmation.
Than acts of service.
Right.
I mean,
and we've seen,
if she doesn't serve me, doesn't really do anything.
We've
if
seen
she
a
says
lot
the right affirming words, that can really.
a lot of relationships fall down right there. He's not meeting her needs. He lives on words of affirmation, as he needs them every single day as his love language. She comes home and she's like, why didn't you do this? Why won't you get off the couch? Why aren't you? And those negative words just build up and erode the intimacy in the relationship. And so we worked on that, and that's probably for both of us something that we really focused on, is if we could build each other up. Everywhere you see our writings, we're trying to affirm and positively talk about the other person.
Well, I know that the Truth and Love Journey is also not just a book of beautiful literature and prose in your relationship. It's also a workbook. It's a workbook where you give assignments, and the people that do the work will probably see results.
Did you do the work?
Not yet. But I once I realized, because he read the book before I did, and so when I was reading the book and I realized you have assignments, I said, I need to go back, and because I think action, to absorb the information is one thing, but to apply it and put it into action is a whole nother thing.
Which is why we started the summits. We started immersive summits with couples, and it takes them through, really, like, we start with several months of counseling ahead of time. But then the immersive summit is a chance to not just hear the words, but put them into practice, so that we can walk alongside a couple and really walk them through some things that they encounter, to say, all right, you know how you could have handled that better, or when you felt that way, what do you think was going on behind the scenes?
Are those the ones you do in Colorado?
We do. So in Colorado and here, and they're normally 4 days. But like Bethany said, in total it's about 7 months of experience. So one of the couples that we did this with, actually several, have said the same thing, that we've been to many marriage conferences and seminars, but it was just knowledge. We tried to go home and use that, but
then the kids would scream, and then something would break, and then the kids would start fighting,
and then we would start fighting,
and we would start fighting, exactly.
And they said this was the first time that we have been able to get away and to have people like yourself to work with us and help us apply it.
Yes.
Where it becomes experiential, and then we spend 6 more months after the summit of really helping them dig into it and making it just a normal routine and part of their life. And I mean, that's where we've seen the greatest results.
Big changes, yeah.
Very cool.
One of the rules of the summit is tons of touching. PDAs, you have to be touching at every moment.
As I see you're holding hands now. Yes.
It's something that slowly erodes away and we don't even notice it.
Yes, I was hearing
Right?
that 90% of couples don't kiss.
Yes.
Just over time, the longer that they're together, the less they kiss. Can you believe that? That
Yep.
is so sad.
We've seen it.
Well, and it's easy. I mean, even for us. I mean, we generally work a lot in the same house. But when you got to get to the next video call, and next thing it's you just brush past it, as opposed to some of the best moments are when I've just been so focused, and Bethany comes up and puts her arms around me and kisses my neck.
And he keeps working. That's why your investments are doing so well. And then I just walk
He's our
away.
investment advisor.
And
Then I just leave the office.
Yes.
and she slows me down so that I can remember what's really important.
And in talking about kissing, I know that one of my favorite songs is, and this has to do with relationships, and it goes like this. It's hard to kiss the lips at night that chew your ass out all day long.
And it's a real song.
It is. And I think absolutely. Don't you think?
Yeah.
It is hard to kiss those lips. And that's probably why there's less kissing.
There is.
Because they're chewing your ass out all the time. I mean, you repel them.
And true vulnerability is when you talk negative to me all the time, I feel less desire to kiss you. That's true vulnerability. That would be a dinner conversation. When you said this, I felt like I didn't want to touch you or kiss you all day.
That's important.
Vulnerability.
It's important to be that honest.
But the secret, you can't stop there, is there's a next step, which is the invitation that I love you enough that I'm going to, even though this is painful for me, so I felt I would like it if you did this, because I want to be close to you.
And then followed by that, we teach couples to do the opposite of what they feel. So once you've shared that, you feel like retracting. You feel like going into a corner and hide. And we teach them, then hug, then kiss. And they're like, we don't feel like it. We're like, yep, it's a world of opposites.
That's
but
challenging.
After it's challenging.
Yes.
You'll have to try it. Next time you have an argument or a fight, try to react. Try to react the opposite in that moment, that tense moment where you feel like, I really just want to smack him, or I really just want to, smack her. Think, I'm going to go hug her.
We don't really have arguments. We call them sometimes red alerts.
That'll work.
Go figure that.
Yes, and we know that you're a little bit of a smart Alex. There's two in this relationship. So.
There is, Vince is too. And when he's been at dinner times with a very large group, and I've been able to afterwards, when we're on our way home, go, I like your sense of humor. We always start with a positive. But when you said this, it actually really did hurt my feelings. And I give him a chance to respond.
Like correct it or modify or
because usually it's he's usually saying I really didn't mean
That
it
is
that way.
the perfect way to handle it too. So I love that you say that could probably diffuse a little bit and make him think. If you just go on the attack, but when you throw out a compliment first, I love that.
So
I'm going to try that tonight.
I say I need to incorporate that.
So in the book, I mean, one of the chapters we talk about are the weapons we use against each other. And you're so right that I think so many guys are so, and I'm talking for men right now, we're used to, we do something stupid, which we often do, and we're penalized for it just by a curt word or even that look, as opposed to...
Or they're locking them out of the bedroom, or they go on the silent treatment, or the guy's in the doghouse on the couch for the night. And so we work with couples to do it differently.
Yeah, which is starting with the positive, being vulnerable to share. So the secret, we think, that really hits, whether you're dating or you're married, is are you willing to be vulnerable? Even if you're pissed off, even if you're in deep pain, are you willing to be vulnerable and share that and invite the other person in, which feels so, you want to do the opposite.
Because you have to instantly forgive, and then you might have to reveal something that you might have to reveal. The reason that bothered me is because I think I'm fat. Or, you might have to say something that they might not even know, or because I was bullied in the 6th grade and that was the exact word that she used. Like, you're going to go at this, you're going to learn yourself so well that you can explain why that
Is
bothered
that like a
you.
trigger?
And that,
Like a
yes.
trigger
A trigger.
that's a deep
Because
wound.
you talk about intimacy in your book. That's true intimacy. When
That
you
is.
get to that level that you can just be that vulnerable, that's really intimacy.
It was interesting because we were thinking about intimacy and the word on the way over here, and we always define it as to know someone fully, to be fully known, and still to embrace each other.
Despite their faults.
But you know, I think the other definition of intimacy is it's messy. It is messy and it is painful sometimes. But when you get there, it is so sweet. It takes some work to get there. When you're there, man, there's nothing better.
But for guys, it's hard, right? Because they want to be the tough macho. He doesn't want to show me his vulnerable side. He doesn't want me to know when he thinks he, tanked one of our accounts or something, right? I mean, he doesn't want to be that vulnerable. And I think that's what it takes to be intimate, to be so close. And there's a security there that you don't feel when you don't have that.
And so I guess intimacy is more of an emotional versus a lot of times people think being intimate is a physical, but I guess the physical is a result,
It's a
of
result.
the emotional intimacy.
And if you have a healthy emotional connection, the physical is amazing. That's when it really
It's like
feels.
next level.
Yeah.
We flew to New York City for one of our date nights, and we took a microphone. We went into Times Square, and we walked around and asked people, what do you think intimacy is? What do you think intimacy is? It's on our YouTube. I'll send you the link. Oh my goodness, people were blushing. Everybody thinks it's sex.
Sex, yeah, it's another name.
And the guy would go, sex, sex, sex. And then a girl would come in, and one of the girls would say, it's a deep connection of the soul. And then a guy, we'd interview another guy, and he'd go, sex. And then we'd interview another woman, and she said, it's cuddling and hold. It's hilarious
right.
because you can see the complete opposites of what they think
And that's on
intimacy
YouTube?
is. And it's on our YouTube. It's
All right, we
hilarious.
gotta watch that. Yeah, we gotta watch that. Good.
Yeah, yes. So I gave this book, Truth and Love, to some friends. And one of the friends that I gave the book to, she was in a relationship for about 4 years, and the relationship wasn't going well. And so by reading the book, she decided to end the relationship. But the book touched her very deeply, and now she's using the book to find her next person.
that's
So
awesome.
she wanted me to tell you thank you.
That's
and so
awesome.
she's written a review, and she's now sharing it with people. So
That's fabulous.
Yeah. Do you have a story that stands out of people that have read the book and said, this is what happened after I read Truth and Love Journey?
There was two that come to mind. We had a dating couple that were ready to break up,
okay.
and Vince was talking to the gentleman.
And basically, he was like, there's something about her I just don't trust. She says things to me that sounds like she doesn't trust me. I've not done anything that would make her not trust me. So there's something going on. So she would share things. And so he was at the point where he was about to shut down the relationship because she felt like she was mistrustful and judging. And I said, and I'll call him Bob. Bob, why don't you not only share how you're feeling about you feel like she's judging you, that she doesn't trust you, but share why. And the why for him was he was previously married and his wife had an affair. And so whenever his wife would essentially act much similar that this woman that he liked was acting towards him. And so it would hit what we call soul wounds that go back to a previous experience.
And
So-
let's just further explain that. That means when something new hits it, you experience the same pain as you did from something previous, but you associate what you just happened as the pain element. So you can experience as much pain as you did when his wife cheated on him because it re-invokes that pain symptom. This is why some people end up single forever or
Right.
struggling in marriage. Until you can identify that his pain was coming from that, and then he was able to share that,
So
and then what happened?
when he was willing to be that vulnerable and share it, not just the what, but the why, what I'm feeling, and why I'm feeling it, it was ironic. She shared the same exact thing with him. that her previous husband had had an affair. And so what was happening is their emotions of what they experienced, they were projecting on each other that had nothing to do with each other.
They identified it as a past soul wound, and then by her being afraid that the same thing that would happen in her marriage was going to happen again, she would act mistrusting, accuse him of things, and that was invoking his past memories. And so these soul wounds were invoking pain in each other.
So it's like defense mechanisms.
It is. And once they figured that out and were able to get to that deeper level of vulnerability, they got married.
Oh, wow.
Well, there you go.
Well,
I love it. Happy
so
ending.
For them, this book was all worthwhile. And for you as well, it's great to hear the stories, of people that are impacted, by your book. And it sounds like if they do the work, which I want to challenge our listeners to read the book and do the work at the end of each chapter. And then let us know how that happens. I mean, what happens in your relationship?
Yeah, we want to know.
In their truth and love journey. And I know that this is not your last book. You've got more books that are now coming in your mind, and maybe you've started.
We're working on 7.
There's one I know, but there's one that I love the story so much. So give us the Cliff Notes version of this new book.
We're working on one called 7 Days, which is about our Mount Kilimanjaro climb. And at the summit, we lost a fellow climber. But Vince also proposed to me.
45 minutes before that.
Yep, Vince proposed to me. It's an amazing story of
We lost our guide on the way down.
triumphs. Yep.
Had no idea where we were going. We were by ourselves.
On Mount Kilimanjaro.
On Mount Kilimanjaro, yeah. So
the
it
highest
was
standalone peak in the world, huh?
all these highs and lows, and we call it a lifetime in 7 days.
Well, that was a journey.
Literally was such a journey. 60 miles, 7 days.
Well, we'll have to have you back on the show.
Oh, of course.
So that you can
absolutely.
share the
To tell
adventures.
that whole story. I love that story. But anyway, thank you for being on the show today. It's been fun. It's been great. I hope it's been helpful to our listeners. That I hope you've gained something, that you're now anxious to get started on your truth and love journey. And if you want to know more about the truth and love journey, if you want to buy the book, if you want to go on the retreat, if you need some help in your relationship, you can contact Vince and Bethany at the truthandlovejourney.com. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for subscribing and leaving comments. We want to know what you think about this show, and we look forward to our next episode. And in the famous words of my old buddy Denver, I'm going to do something for you that the devil ain't never done for you. I'm fixing to cut you loose. But until next time, vaya con Dios, my friends.